Everyone. As Chanel mentioned, my name is Claire, and I'm the senior educator, and I'm really happy today to be with you to talk about how to make buttonholes using our senior machines. So basically, there's three different ways you can make a buttonhole. First of all, if you have a mechanical machine, you can do them manually or using a four-step buttonhole process. But today, I'm going to concentrate on using the buttonhole process which comes with a lot of the computerized machines. So this big foot that tends to be intimidating. Well, I'm going to show you how to make a buttonhole using this foot. All right. So before, and I'm going to be demonstrating on the Singer Heavy Duty 6700 computerized machine from so it's going, you'll be able to follow along without a problem. I want to remind you before I start, first of all, there is a handout that we've prepared that is, I think Chanel just dropped it into the chat. So if you want to follow along, you can definitely bring that up and print it to write your own notes or just keep it close by, because I do mention the key points of the class today. But I also want to remind everyone that it is being recorded. So as of tomorrow, you'll be able to access the information again and go back on specific points. So do not stress out. You'll be able to always go back to the points that I've mentioned if you're afraid that you're going to forget it. So they are in the handouts, but as of tomorrow, this class will also be in Michael's YouTube page, channel, sorry. All right, so let me present the buttonhole process, which is the buttonhole foot that we're going to be using. So it is included with the Singer Heavy Duty 6700 computerized machine. And so if you have one of our machines back home, you can check in your toolbox to see if you have it. So it's going to allow you to make perfectly sized buttonholes for your buttons. So if let me just bring this here. So this is actually whoops, sorry. The front of the foot is right here. You attach it to your sewing machine right here, and the magic happens behind. So usually you'll be able to see, which we can't really right now, but there it is. There's like a small icon design, a drawing of a button in the back. So this actually tells you that you can push this back and insert the button that you'll be using on your garment and putting it in that section, and just closing, of course, happens on when you're live. It doesn't stay in. So here, you just snug it right into that foot, and you're going to have the exact size of the buttonhole on your machine. So now that I could continue talking about the buttonhole, but I know lots of you are going to say, I want to see it in action, because no matter what I say now, having shown that foot, you want to see it in action before we can continue discussing all of the key points. Because making a buttonhole on a garment, there's a lot of things that happen before sewing it, but we all want to see the end product before we discuss of all the rest. So I'm exactly the same. So without any further ado, I'm going to show you how to sew a buttonhole, and then we'll go into all the details after. So if there's the sewing machine, I'm going to simply put it right here to begin discussing how does this work. First of all, I'm going to grab a piece of fabric. So I'm pretending this is a garment, a jacket, or whatever. So I've made the line. We'll discuss all that later. I have my stabilizer underneath, and so this is where I'm going to be wanting to stitch the buttonhole. So the button is positioned on the one-step buttonhole foot, and we're going to go and select the stitch. There are several. I'm sorry, I should have pushed this down just a little bit here. Right here. On the bottom, there are cards that you can pop out of your sewing machine, and they will show you, will see here that you have different stitches, buttonhole that are available. Again, I will talk about all that later. So I'm just going to pick the first one just to show you how it works. So how do we do that? So I'm sorry, I'm going to move the camera again. So right here is the screen. Now, it was mentioned that I have to go into the second, section 2. So if I press this button here, you see now it says, maybe you don't see well, but this is how you change to the different levels to get different stitches. And I know my stitch is number 12, so I'm going to type in number 12. And so I know that I'm in the buttonhole section. And it actually, I know for a fact that it is under buttonhole because you get this icon that says lower the lever. So I'll explain it to you in just a little bit. So I just wanted to show you here that it's giving me all the detail, all the information of the for the machine that I know I'm in the right area. So I'm going to move on to this here to show you a more close-up of what happens, all the magic that's happening when we're going to be attaching the foot. So I'm going to attach the foot. It's now onto the machine. My next trick is I'm going to go and grab that thread and bring it under the foot. The reason why I do that, I don't know if you guys watched I did a demo on satin stitches and all the things to make sure that you have a nice satin stitch look. And the first thing I say is that you should hold your thread when you start to make sure that your tension is right at the beginning. And it's the exact same thing for the buttonhole. A buttonhole is actually a satin stitch and all around. So on the bottom, on the left, on the top, and on the right hand. So to ensure that you start with a nice satin stitch, you do need to hold those two pieces of threads tightly to have a good satin stitch to begin with. So push that thread underneath the foot. And then you're going to position your fabric under the pressure foot. So if I'm, as I mentioned, I marked my fabric to know where I want to start. And so you see, you have two red lines. This is to help you align your foot where you want that seam to start for the buttonhole. So you align the red lines to the line that you've marked on your fabric, and you bring the pressure foot down. Now, before you continue, there's an important things that you need to do. You need to lower the lever. So you have a button here, and that's to it's the automatic thread needle. It helps you put the thread through the needle. Just behind it, you have another lever that you probably never realized you had. And so when you bring that down, oh, surprise, there we go. It's actually the button that activates the buttonhole section. So this lever really needs to be behind this section of the buttonhole foot. And basically, you have the other one, you have another piece of plastic that pops out at the farther away, and that determines the length of the buttonhole. And so this little lever is really important because it will tell the machine, okay, stop, you've made the length enough. And that's when it knows it needs to move around and give you the right dimension for your button. So that's all the magic. If you're trying to make a buttonhole and you're realizing it's not happening, it's not doing what it's supposed to, it's probably that lever is not behind that stick right there. Okay, so that helps you do all the magic. One last thing I'm going to remind everyone, so I'm going to switch camera. Again, we're playing with satin stitch. So satin stitch is a technique where you want your thread to be visible, to go all the way down underneath, so you have a nice full effect. So in order to do that, you do need to bring your pressure foot, not the pressure foot, sorry. You need to reduce the tension of your thread so the top thread can go a little bit lower. So I'm going to bring, I'm gonna bring it down by 1 point, okay? So I'm not, right now, if you see the camera, I brought it down to 2. Um, I'm just gonna come back here. So I brought the tension back down to 2. It doesn't mean every time I'm making a buttonhole, my tension is at 2. You're always gonna be running some tests. So the pieces of fabric that you're sewing together, when you sew them to have a nice seam, if you need to have the tension at 3 or 4 or 5, it depends on your, it depends on your thread, it depends on your fabric. So once you've determined that tension to have a nice seam, then you lowered it by 1 to make the satin stitch. All right, so that's all the tricks I guess I could tell you to have a nice satin stitch when you're making your buttonhole. So I brought the tension down to by 1. So if it I'm putting it at 2, and I'm hoping I didn't, if I brought it down already before I started the video, then it's definitely too low. So we'll test it and we'll see where I'm at. So now we're back to this camera so that you can see up close what happens. So basically, I'm going to start pressing the start button and it's going to be making a lot of noise. I'm afraid that you might not be hearing me. So I'll just explain to you what's going to happen. As soon as I press start, it's going to go back, stitch a straight line back, and then probably come back forward and then reverse, make that satin stitch all the way back. It's going to make a bar tack at the back, then sew to the front and again to the back, just to make sure that everything is stable and down. And then it's going to be making that satin stitch again to come back to the front and finishing off the buttonhole in the front. So that's basically trying, in a nutshell, what it's going to do. So using the start stop button here, I'm just going to be pressing the start button and the buttonhole is going to start being sewn. I don't have to stop, the machine will stop automatically. So here we go. And now the buttonhole is sewn all together. I'm gonna bring the presser foot back up, and you see what happened. It went back to its initial position. The foot is back in its initial position. So if I would want to make another buttonhole right beside, I would keep 2 inches of thread. I would cut the thread, but don't cut it any closer for the buttonhole. And then you can adjust and move on to the next section where you would want to position the next button. So this lever still needs to be behind here. Only once you're finished making the buttonholes, then you can bring it back up and you can be done. But every time you need to make a buttonhole, you need to make sure that this lever is down and that it's behind that line. All right. So I'm going to cut my thread here and let me go here so that I can show you the next part. Okay, so these threads, I'm not going to do it on live camera because it's always when you're live that it takes forever. But I just want to explain it that these threads, you should not cut them close to the edge. I would like make a, actually, no, what I would do is I would take a needle and bring them to the bottom side of my buttonhole stitch. Same thing with these two. You see how long they are? So I'm going to bring it all the way down. I'm going to tie a knot. And with the needle, I would run through a little bit of the satin stitch underneath and then pull out and cut that section. So I'm leaving maybe, 5 or 10 millimeters, whatever I can that won't impact the look of the buttonhole. I'm going to keep on having just a little bit excess threads here and made a tie off to make sure that it doesn't, my stitches won't move, won't start being unstitched. Okay, so this is the, sorry, this is the buttonhole stitch that I've just done on my fabric as a test to show you. So now I hope that everyone feels just a little bit less intimidated by this big buttonhole foot, because it really helps us create the seams of a buttonhole faster, because you have that button in the back, it knows what length, you just position it correctly and press start and it will sew the buttonhole for you. All right, so I hope you enjoyed this demo. Now I'm going to talk about all the factors to consider when making the buttonhole. That's what makes the buttonhole perfect on whichever garment you choose to make. I'm just going to make sure, are there any questions? If Monet, if you don't mind, if there is a question, now would be a good time to ask it. If not, I'll move into the factors to consider.
We don't have any questions at the moment. So if anybody has those questions, please make sure to drop them in the chat.
Yes. Okay, great. So I'm going to talk about the factors, what you need to do before getting that buttonhole onto the machine and sewing it into place. So there are a few, we never like to follow rules, but there are rules to help you just make the process easier. So I'm going to go back here and show you this fabric. So it's a little bit messy, but it will prove the point that when you are using a piece of fabric to make your buttonhole, you need to have a minimum of 3 layers. And usually in the pattern that you've chosen, it will consider it. So just so I can show you here, in the back, I have a fusible interfacing on the back of my fabric, and I folded the fabric so there are 2 layers, front and back of that fabric. So that usually comes in the design, in the pattern that you're following. And on top of that, I'm actually adding a 4th layer, which is stabilizer. You can use a tearaway like the one I have here, or water soluble, but to have a perfect satin stitch effect look, I really ensure that I have a minimum of 3 layers of my fabric on which it's going to be, and I'm adding always a stabilizer underneath. All right. So that's the first thing that the first key the factor to have a successful buttonhole. The second thing I'm going to talk about is the placement and orientation of the buttonhole. So the first thing is, of course, it's better create the garment, and only once you're done creating the garment, prepare the buttonholes. And even though the garment is saying position the buttonholes in these locations, I would not do that. I would put the garment on the person that would be wearing it. So for me, if it's a blouse I'm making for myself, I would put the garment on, and there are some key areas that I'm going to focus on to make sure that the buttonhole is in the right position. So for example, the center of the bust or the waistline, your true waistline, this is where you want to make sure that you have a button there, and that's a buttonhole to make sure that it's going to be a nice garment that flows well on your body. So don't
Claire, we do have a quick question.
Yes.
Someone said, what is that middle layer called?
Oh, yes, the middle layer is it's called fusible interfacing. Basically, what you use in your collars, it's not stabilizer because it remains in the garment. So it's a woven, usually it's a woven interfacing. And I like it to be, for my samples here, it was fusible because it was easy. I just heat pressed onto the garment so it wouldn't move. So usually when you're following a pattern, the pattern, if you have a buttonhole, it's going to say to have interfacing. So follow the garment, the pattern instruction. It's going to tell you exactly which interfacing you should be putting.
And someone else said they have a more basic machine. Can any sewing machine create the buttonhole with the right foot?
You need to have a computerized machine. If not, you need to make it like as I mentioned, either manually or usually if it's a mechanical machine. You see how when the buttonhole started, it made like the sand stitch on the left, then a sand stitch on the right, and the bar tack on the top, and then the bottom part also. Those are individually, usually look at your machine, look at all the stitch outlines that it has. It does have those in your machine, so you need to determine the length and you need to stop and change the different stitch that you have in your machine to do that next section. And then sand stitch on the left, bar tack at the top, sand stitch on the right, bar tack in the bottom. It's like 1, 2, 3, 4. You follow along and you do it manually. And that's what's enjoyable of a computerized machine is that you have that foot as part of the accessories with the machine, and you can just put it in, press the lever down, and you can get it done automatically. Okay. So if there's not another question for now, I'm going to talk about placement and orientation. So don't follow the pattern, adjust to your center bust line and your waistline. And then once those are set, like for example, I would do my collar buttonhole and I would do my center bust, and then I would find where to put all the other buttons so that it looks nice and even. But really, it's important to do those adjustments. Also, if you're making garments for others, remember that I always forget, I need to look at my notes because I'm dyslexic, so I will tell you the exact opposite. So women's clothes have the buttonholes placed on the right-hand side and men's are on the left-hand side. So things to remember, if you're starting to make garments for others, consider that, because I guess I never knew, and I found that out when I was starting to make garments that, it's not the same. And then, so now the placement is this, I think I've given the key points to remember when where you place the buttonhole. I want to talk about the orientation, because you can put a buttonhole vertically or you can put it horizontally. There are quick, so you really need to consider that before you finish the garment, because the pattern can say one thing, but once you know the difference, you might want to change that from the pattern. Basically, if you have a loose fitting garment and the buttons are more for decoration than securing the garment in place, then a vertical position, a vertical buttonhole is fine. It's perfect. If you know that it's going to be something that's very snug, close to the body, like for example, a waistline on a pair of pants, then you do want to have that buttonhole horizontal so that it holds more in place. All right. It would actually work better under pressure. I have samples. I'm going to go change camera so I can show you the difference so that you can understand what I'm trying to say. So here we go. This is an example here. Actually, you know what? I'm going to go with this sample here. So if this is a blouse and it's loose fitting, then you have no problem having a buttonhole that is vertical, right? Because you don't need for it your garment will not be stretched out. It will be loose fitting. So that's not a problem. However, sorry, if you are going to make something that is just a little bit more tight, Here, let me just keep it that way. I'm there. So if it becomes tight and you see how if I'm pulling on the fabric, it will tend to have a gaping hole, all right? Even you've probably had that experience or known of the experience where it's so tight sometimes that the button kind of gets falls out. So this is not something that we want to happen. So that's when we are going to be positioning the buttonhole horizontally. So let me put that back in. Now, if I am pushing, I'm stretching, you see how nothing moves, there's no gaping hole. So you, like for me, I know if I'm, my next blouse that I'm making, I'm definitely making the buttonholes horizontal on my blouse because I just hated buying a blouse has a vertical buttonhole and that button falls out all the time. So that's one thing to consider. Same thing when you're making a pair of jeans. So your waistline on that jean, you do want to have a horizontal more so than a vertical where everything can move. All right. So I hope that I've kind of helped you understand how even though the pattern says to position the buttonhole one way, consider other options. And also, uh, what I wanted to show with this fabric, and I've used black so that it's easier to see. You see, this fabric does not stretch this way, but it stretches this way. So depending on the position of a buttonhole, if it's not stretchy, then it's good. It's good to do the buttonhole on the side that the fabric is not stretchy. Okay, so an example here, if I would use that same button, if I position the buttonhole in a stretch fabric like this, you see how, again, it's gapping, and if it's horizontal, it will not gap. So all things to consider when you're making your fabrics, when you're, you know, sometimes you don't realize that you've purchased a fabric that is stretchy on one side. So you need to consider all that as you're going along. So that's for placement and orientation. The other thing that before going to the buttonhole and all that details, the last thing you need to consider about the size of the buttonhole that you need to do, you also need to consider the thickness of the button. So right now, I've demonstrated with a button that is really thin. But what if I would have the same button, but it's thicker, or for example, for jeans that have a thick shank in the bottom of the button. So that you also need to take into consideration when you're determining the length of your buttonhole. So this one is fairly simple. It's a thin button, so I'm just clipping it in and I'm ready to go. However, if I would have the same button that is just like 4 millimeters thicker, then I would increase the size, okay? Because you can still move it. I would increase it by that maybe 3 millimeter to make sure that it will not be tight to put it into the buttonhole. So if it's a thin button, you don't have to worry about it. It's a thick, play with it. And that's why it's important to have samples of your fabric and to create that piece so that you can test it before you actually make your buttonholes on your garment. All right, so that's for the size and the shape of the buttonhole. No, just the size. I'm going to talk now about the shape of the buttonhole. That's what I wanted to say. So let's talk about the shape. Are there any questions so far, though, first, before I continue?
I'm not seeing any more questions at this moment.
Perfect. So I'm going to go here and go back to the different sizes. All right. Now, I want to remind you that when you have a sewing machine, You do get instructions. I know for our Singer machines, we have PDFs available on our website for each machine. And so I actually went and printed off the exact page with because you have in your instructions all of the stitch outs on that are available on your machine. So this is the section with all the buttonholes on the heavy duty 6700 computerized machine. So you see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There are 7 different buttonholes. So that also can become a little bit intimidating. So let's just run through it. But if you forget, go back to your instructions, because it would also tell you which foot to use and with what type of garment that you need it for. And surprise, surprise, you have 2 other foot in the bottom that can be used. Those 2 stitches need also the same foot. And now that we've had this class, you'll understand how to size it. And so it's a lot of fun. If we have time, I could show you things I've done at the end of the class with those 2, but they are a lot of fun to do. So let's just review each buttonhole shape and why you would use them. So the first one that is on the 67, the heavy duty 6700 computerized machine is the basic rectangle shape. So it's a basic buttonhole shape used for lightweight and loose fitting fabric. So you can, it's evenly spaced, so aesthetically pleasing as well. So that's a good buttonhole to use. Then the second stitch that you have is a rounded edge. So if you're going to be using a horizontal, perhaps that would be nice to have that curved edge on one side. But it's also to be used for lighter weight, delicate fabric that are loose fitting. All right. There's the one right after it. Pretty much the same one as this stitch, but it's reinforced. So there's just a little bit more stitches to give it, even when you touch them, you see that this one lays flatter. This one is a little bit bulkier. So test them out on your garment also and see how they feel, the difference of them before you pick, depending on which fabric you're using. The next one here is a keyhole stitch. So this one, the keyhole, it's really meant for heavyweight, thicker fabrics. And also when using a button with a large shank on the bottom, for example, those jeans, if you look at, this is when I start looking at all the garment I have at home, and jeans definitely have that keyhole so that the shank of your button fits perfectly in that section, and it lays nice, and because it would have it's not nested in a rectangle as opposed to the keyhole where it really lies nicely. So the difference between this stitch and that one is, again, this one is reinforced, so it's the exact same stitch as that one, except it has just a little bit more satin stitch inside. Then the following stitch, it's called the keyhole with tapered top. See the tapering on the top? So instead of being just like a rectangle, it's actually a triangle. So it's, again, for the same reasons that you'd be using the other keyholes. So it's, medium to heavyweight fabrics. But the fact that it has this little triangle, and it's really for an aesthetic look. So if you're making a jacket and that button can be seen, having that, it might be more aesthetically pleasing than just a basic rectangle. And the last one here, it looks odd, I have to agree. It's called the rectangle zigzag stitch. So if you're wondering when would I ever use that stitch? Well, if you're into making making a garment using stretch fabric. So here is an example of a very nice thick fabric. So it is very, very stretchy. So this is the original, so let me go back here. So this stitch here is that one here, all right? So you see how it doesn't sit nicely. It's kind of wavy. So that rectangle stitch is nice on like cotton fabric that's not stretchy, but as soon as it's stretchy, it kind of doesn't give it a nice look. And when you see here, this is that zigzag buttonhole, and it really lays flat, lays nicely. Even when you're stretching your fabric, it still looks nice as opposed to this one. So when you are adding a button, you know, it all looks nice, whether it's horizontal or vertical. We can spend hours playing with stretching things. Of course, this one stretches a lot. I have a secret. I'll show you in a little bit. So if you're doing it, if you're making buttonholes on very stretchy fabric, you want to use that stitch. So the zigzag stitch is what you'll want to use on that specific fabric. So I've talked about the different shapes that you can have on the Singer 6700 computerized machine, the different buttonholes and when you would use them. So go ahead and start looking at your machine and play with it and you see how I've got different types of fabrics and I've played around and I've made a lot of buttonholes. So it's great practice. So I strongly recommend that you do that as well at home. But we still have more factors to consider when we're making the buttonhole. The next thing we want to talk about is threads. And when we talk about threads, we're going to talk about needles. So I'm going to grab another sample to show you. All right, so here we are. Now, again, before showing the samples, let's go back here and talk for a little bit. When you're making a garment, the type of thread in terms of cotton, polyester, denim, top stitch will depend on what your garment, your fabric is made of and how thick it is. So I'm showing you samples, but don't say I want to use this thread for my garment when the garment is clearly not made for that type of thread. So you have to consider, I always like to say, if you're working with cotton fabric, use cotton thread, polyester fabric, use polyester thread. Denim, you're going to want to use either a very thick cotton thread or denim. You do have denim threads. And also you can consider top stitch. So I'm going to go to the samples now so that you can see what I need. So maybe I can do a close up. Here we go. So I wanted to show you here, this is a 50 weight sample, 40 weight and a 30 weight. So the threads get thicker. So that's why you have a feeling that that satin stitch is a lot thicker. All right. And you don't see it on the camera. So I'm going to note to myself to rethink that next time. The last one is also a variegated thread, but you don't really see that. It goes from beige to green, but all in lighter colors. And I guess the lighting is too bright. You don't see it, but also consider, it's just also a reminder for me to tell you guys to consider variegated threads when you're doing projects, because sometimes it adds some fun into the design. And I have here an example. So those are cotton threads from 50 all the way to 30. And this is my a polyester thread that I've put here. And this one is the denim thread. So see how thicker it is, because it's really meant for a heavyweight. So I did my sample on linen. So really it's way too heavy for the linen. And I have the top stitch here, and you can see how thick they are. So this is really good threads to have when you're making thicker projects with garments with thicker fabric. So this one is denim, and I've used the denim here and the top stitch here. So it really does make the buttonhole it makes them sturdy. So that's also something, you don't want to go with a 50 weight cotton thread to make a buttonhole for jeans. All right, so that's my information here. And I also do want to bring up the fact that depending on the thread that you're using, you will want to use different assortment of needles. So these are the universal needles that I use for sewing, for example, linen, or even cotton, depending if it's 50 weight, 40 weight. So you have some 80s, you have some 90s. So as the number gets bigger on the needles, the needle is bigger, the hole is bigger, so you can go with a 40 or a 30 weight. On a 90, I definitely go a 90 size needle for 40 weight or 30 weight thread in cotton. If you're using denim, then you can use the denim needles. Here I've got 90 and 100. So see the size of, depending on, I would say probably 100 for my denim and the denim thread. And also you can use top stitch needles. I don't have a sample here, sorry. But you can use denim or top stitch needles for your thicker threads, and they will really help you achieve those perfect, the perfect satin stitch look. Okay, so that's what I wanted to say with regards to your threads and needles. Are there any questions with regards to those?
Someone does have a question on how they can rip out the buttonhole.
All right, so I'm gonna go back here. We obviously don't want that to happen. If you're not satisfied with the buttonhole and you need to do it again, I would work on the reverse, and I would use the seam ripper and go through here and undo the seam rip, undo it. But that's why it's so important to practice, practice, practice on another piece of garment until you are completely satisfied before going on to the piece of garment, because it is a satin stitch. It will affect your fabric. So what I tend to do, if you really need to undo it, I would take it apart from underneath, because you've lowered that tension and that thread went underneath and you had that satin look. You can just go and see, cut the satin stitch underneath. Before doing it again, I would add, because I always do, so freight check, I would add freight check to your fabric just to give it, so it's more sturdy. And I would definitely put another piece of stabilizer underneath to really help the fabric survive that second buttonhole stitch out. Okay, so that, I hope that answers your question. So now I want to show you another thing. So remember, I'm going to go back here. Remember this very stretchy fabric. So it's very stretchy, but not a problem if you use that zigzag stitch and it's horizontal. But if you're doing it vertical and there happens to be a little bit of it, that can become a problem. So I want to show you, for extra support, you can actually do a corded buttonhole. So this is the one here that is corded. So what does that mean? It means that when you are making your sewing your buttonhole, you are going to add a cord. So what do I mean by adding a cord? You can use either embroidery floss, or what I like to do to make sure that I'm keeping the same thread color, I actually take 6 strands of my thread, keep it together. I go take, put a zigzag stitch to hold it in place. So I have a very thick floss, I guess I can call it. So you need to make a good length of the cord. You see here in the back, you guys never noticed probably, but there's a little stick in the back. So you need to add that cord to the stick in the back. And this is not something that is easy to do on a live demo with a camera, but let me try. So in the back, you want to put that cord, you're gonna see two grooves in behind here. So you want one strand to fit in each groove here, and you'll be able to hold it in the front with these hooks there, okay? So it looks easy when I show you here, but once you install it on the machine, it's like everything can move. So really, I always keep my fingers here, keep them attached to that section here. And then I go and install it onto the sewing machine. So I'm gonna put my garment is ready to be sewn. And
Claire, just letting you know we do have 15 minutes.
all right. So I'm gonna put it in here, all right? And again, like I showed you earlier, position it with the red lines, making sure that the cord is still strapped here. And then it will be making the satin, I was hoping you can see here. You see here, the cord is there. So basically you can slow the machine down just to make sure, but honestly, it automatically worked for me as long as I kept it in the groove and in those little teeth that are at the front. Your zigzag stitch is going to take in those cords. All right. So let me show you again here a close-up of what it does. So you see, this is your zigzag stitch. All right, without the cord, and now with the cord, how everything holds nicer. So let me put this one in here. Remember how it was gapping? And now if you put it in the corded, it doesn't gap as much. It's sturdier. It holds everything in place. So it's really worth looking into it to make those corded buttonholes. Now, going back, I've said, it's good for sturdy, but I had fun. I tried it on my satin or silky garment, very lightweight. So this is the original rectangle stitch. And look here, this is the same stitch, but it's corded. And so you see how this can gap? This one gaps less. The fabric is nicer. The feel is nicer. It's a little bit tougher to put the button in, but once the button is in, it actually, it's tougher to come out. So if you do want to make that blouse and keep it vertical, then the other trick, instead of making it a horizontal buttonhole, keep it vertical, but add some corded in there and it's not gonna stretch out as much, okay? So I really wanted to have time. I'm so happy I was able to show you how to make that extra support if you still wanted vertical instead of horizontal. So that is done. I want to show you one last thing. But another tip, because once your buttonhole is done, you still need to get that hole in the middle. And what I found to be the best way to make that hole without damaging the garment, because what happens a lot of times is people tend to cut the seams they've just done. So I add a pin on each end, okay? There we go. So once those pins are in, I'm gonna go and take that seam ripper that comes with my sewing machine, and I'm gonna start from the middle and rip all the way to the end. There we go. And I can't go further because the pin is there, so I won't be able to cut my seam. And I'm gonna go around on the other end, and I'm gonna go here and cut all the way to the end here as well. So that's how I finish my buttonhole, with that seam in the middle. And to avoid this fraying, you see here, you have these threads that are coming up. If you use fray check, you dab fray check onto your buttonhole all around. You wait for it to dry out, and then you make the cut. You'll have a beautiful finished buttonhole just like all of these that I've prepared to show you during my demo. Now, if you like the idea of making buttonholes, but you're not ready yet to make garments, that's all right. I found a very cute project. Michaels have these cute bags that are available. You can purchase them in their stores, but I like to have bags that are closable. So what I did is I actually added those buttonholes all around the bag, and I made myself a strap. So now these bags, I now have the beautiful Michael's bag, but I have, they're closable, so I can really tie them together and I can walk around. So let me just show it here so that you can, so you can have these bags and you can be able to close them up. And so it's very useful. So here you go. You see, so this is the original, the first stitch I showed you, the rectangle buttonhole stitch. That's what I've used here. So I've basically practiced my buttonhole stitches. There's two inside of that here, then one on the extremity. And I did the exact same thing on the back side of the bag. And so now I have a very cute bag that is, you can just push this together and you can close it and you have and use all the colors you can want. I had this applique course, so you can add appliques to your bag. It's really a cute project to do, and you're not all stressed of adding the button to the project. So that I think that I went through all of the different points that I had prepared. If there are any other questions, I would love to hear from everyone. Use the chat, put in your questions. We've got a few minutes left on the on our class today. So there are no other questions. That was just want to make sure
everyone is loving the class. They really loved it. They thought it was very structured and organized and showed some really fun new ways to use the buttonholes. So really great class. And I love the drawstring feature. That was really creative.
Yes. Yeah, because not everybody is, we're intimidated by the buttonhole maker. Now you're not, because you've had this class and it's like, I'm not ready to make garment yet, but these would be great presents. So you can practice your buttonholes with those bags. Yes. So if there's no other questions, we'll
maybe, I'm sorry, we did that cording was really interesting. Can you maybe just show that one more time with the placement of the cords?
Yes, sure, absolutely. Yeah. It's like a big surprise at the end of the class. So let me see, can I make this big? Okay, here, let me pull this out of the way. So again, that's a regular Michael's bag. So you have, I forgot how to say this, but the handles. Okay, so inside the handles, I made, and again, I had stabilizer behind. And so I put in two buttonholes here on the inside of the handles and two other on the outside of the handle, like halfway between the edge of the bag and the handle here. And I repeated the same thing on the other side. So again, two buttonholes inside the handle, two buttonholes just on the outside, and just basically I made, I think it was a 2-inch piece of fabric that I folded in half and then I folded again inside and did a stitch all around and just brought this inside here, back, inside the bag, out of the bag, inside the bag, out of the bag, back inside, out, and all the way back to the front so I can tie it off right here.
We do have another question as well. Someone asked, do you recommend certain buttonholes for different fabrics?
Absolutely, yes, and that's why you should always refer back to your the instructions that are in the user guide of your sewing machine. Let me bring this back here. So you see the square buttonhole. It's for okay, so home decor, garments, crafts, and more. But then it says this buttonhole is better for lightweight fabric. And this one is better for tailored jackets and heavier. So those, they're saying tailored jackets. Obviously, tailored jackets are heavier, and coats they're heavier garments. So and especially this one has if you like jeans, for example, you're gonna have a button with a shank, so you need that one here. So the heavier the fabric, you go down. You don't stay with the top ones. You go to these ones. And again, if you have stretch fabric, you're gonna go with this buttonhole. So basically, yeah, definitely. And if it's really heavy, and you need extra support for that fabric, then consider corded. Corded will help you get, even whether it be a keyhole. And I just remembered, I forgot to tell you, when you're doing the corded, that you need to bring the cord behind, just like I showed you how to finish a button at the beginning. You bring all the threads in the back. Well, when you're cording, you take those cords to the back. You definitely tie them together, and then you follow it into the seam, and you cut out after about 4 or 5 millimeters of the thread being into the bottom part. So corded, the heavier the fabric, make that that buttonhole corded, and it will help you. Okay. So if that's it for today, there are no more questions. I'm going to thank everyone for participating. You've been great. I had a lot of fun today. I had so much to say, and I'm glad I got them all in. And so thank you for being here. Again, this class is going to be on the Michael's YouTube page as of tomorrow, so you can go back and listen to it again and write more notes. And you can come and see us again. I believe next Thursday, we have another singer educator that will be part of a live class to show something else exciting to do with your singer sewing machine.